In this video tutorial, we're going to walk through how to build this UI I have on screen now. Somebody sent this in to me a little while ago. I've forgotten who actually sent it, so sorry to them, but essentially we're going to create this, we're going to attempt to create this little header, expandable header thing, where as you sort of scroll, it expands, and as you scroll sort of down further in the content area, the big header disappears and it goes just back to the normal tabs they have there. So recently I put out a video where I sort of did this pseudo live coding video. Usually for video tutorials and other tutorials I have a plan. I know that the app's going to work and I just walk through building it. In that particular video I didn't have a plan. I didn't know how I was going to achieve it. I just had a vague idea of what I wanted to build. And that's going to be the same with this video. I don't know exactly how I'm going to go about building this yet. I have no idea if it's even going to work. But I'm going to try and build it on screen so you can sort of see how I go about doing it and all the mistakes I might make along the way. So we might not end up building something that's exactly like this here. I just kind of want to get, I guess, the spirit of it, and we'll get it as far as we possibly can. And like last time, I'll probably do a follow-up blog post afterwards where I can sort of sit down and improve it a bit to the point where it's a bit more usable. But hopefully in this video we can get to a point where we have something cool. So just taking a look at what is actually happening here. So we have it so that when the content is scrolled all the way to the top, this header thing is fully expanded. And then as the user scrolls down, it starts shrinking until it disappears completely. So we're going to try and build that first, see if we can get that going. If that's easy, perhaps we'll move on to the next thing where we have those fields in there as well. And so as the header gets bigger, more fields start popping in as they can fit, essentially. And there's also some cool animations going on there as they fade out as well. Probably not something we'll get to in this tutorial, but we'll see how it goes. So my thinking so far is that we'll create a custom component that we're going to put in the header area of a page, and then we're going to listen for scroll events on the content area. So we want to get those scroll events into that custom component and then either expand or shrink it based on where the scroll currently is. And so I'm thinking there'll be some kind of inverse relationship between how tall the expanded header is versus the distance that the scroll is currently from the top of the scrollable area. So I've got the documentation for the content API on screen now. So this is the Ion content tag that you have in just about every single one of your pages in Ionic 2. And so if you take a look at this, there's a lot of stuff that we can use in here. There's values like scroll top, which is somewhere in here. That's scroll to top, which is a function. Let's try to search it. We've got scroll top here. I think that might be a typo. I'm not actually sure. But anyway, we want the distance we want the distance from where the scroll currently is versus where the top of that scrollable area actually is. So we'll get to that eventually. We'll see if this is a typo or not. I don't see why it would be called that otherwise. And then as well as providing values like that, we also have some events we can listen to with the output events here. So we've got ion scroll end, and ion scroll start. So we can listen to these ion scroll events and then do things as we can hear the content scrolling. So the basic idea that I'm working with now, at least, is that we'll have we'll be grabbing the events from the content area in our custom component, and then based on whatever the current status of that content area is, we'll change the height of the expandable header. So let's get a start now by generating the custom component. So I've already got an app set up here to avoid having to set that all up on screen. So all I have to do is run Ionic G component, and we'll call it expandable header. So I'll run that now, and then we're going to jump back into the project here. I prepared the project beforehand, but I generated an Ionic 1 project, which is definitely not what I want to do. So I'll generate a new project now, and then we'll jump back into it. Okay, so we're running into issues already, but I've generated an Ionic 2 project now, and we are ready to go. So I'll generate that expandable header component again. And then we should be able to find that in our components folder here. I'm just going to rename this to expandable header instead of expandable header component. We'll get rid of those comments there, and we'll just set it up in the app module file right away. So we just have to import that. And we'll need to set it up in the declarations array. Okay, so before we do anything, I'll just come into our home page, which is where we'll set up this, this component. And I'm just going to try and add it to the header here, just to see that we actually have the component working. Save that, and then I'm just going to serve that now. Mistake number 2 already. I am on a roll today. I gave the wrong file path in the app module file. Of course, that is in its own folder as well. Save that again. Hopefully we've got it now. So we have something working now. We can see the hello world being shoved into the top there, which is just the default component that's generated. If we open this up, you can see we've got an interpolation on text there, and then in the TypeScript file for this, we just have that being set to hello world. We're going to get rid of that, of course, but at least we can see that the component is working. We've got it all set up properly now. So the first thing I'm going to try and do is see if we can get scroll events being passed in from here into our component. So what I might do first actually is I'm just going to modify this home page to include a ton of just some junk data. I'll get rid of that. So I'm just going to put in a bunch of h2 tags that say hello, just so we have some stuff to scroll. Okay, that should be enough. We'll just jump back in here. Okay, so we can scroll a little bit now, so we should be able to have a play around with what's happening in our header. So we want to pass in that content area to our expandable header, and we want to listen to events on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a reference, a local variable on this content area. We'll just call it, let's go with scroll area. And then we're just going to set up an input on our expandable header. We'll call this, we'll just call that scroll area as well. Actually, no, I don't like that. It's probably a bit confusing. I want to make these two things have different names. We'll call that, we'll just call this one content, and we'll call that one scroll area. So we'll say scroll area equals content, and this is a similar concept to what you do with the Ion nav, setting up menus and things like that. So we're just passing in a reference to Ion content into our component here. Now in order to grab that in the component, I'm going to have to set up an input. So I'll have to import that. I'm just going to get rid of that for now, and I'll get rid of this as well. Okay, so now we'll be able to grab that value through input, and then the name of the input we created here, which is scroll area. Yeah, scroll area. And if we set up an after view init hook here, we'll just try and log out whatever that ends up being set to. So we'll just log out. Actually, I forgot to give it a name as well. we'll call that, we'll just call that scroll area as well. So now if I log out scroll area, this dot scroll area, hopefully we can see something being passed in. We want that content to be passed into this component. So we'll jump into the browser and cross our fingers. Okay, so that isn't working. We're getting undefined in the expandable header now. So we'll try and figure out why that is happening. So perhaps something fun to do would be to look at Ionic's code itself. As I mentioned, the menu that Ionic 2 uses, if you're setting up a menu, use a similar process where you set up a variable for what your content is, and then you pass that into the menu. So why don't we take a look at how Ionic does that, and then maybe we can emulate that. Okay, so I've got the Ionic repository open now. So we're just going to find the menu component. Okay, and we'll jump into the menu.ts file, and we'll try and see how that content is being passed into this file, or into this component rather. So there's an example of how it works. You set up the content reference on the Ion nav, and then that's passed into the Ion menu. So that's pretty much exactly what we're trying to do here. Okay, so as far as I could tell, we were doing the exact same thing. I just tried changing the name of the reference we set up. I just changed it to my content. I think content must already be being used, because if I change that to my content instead of just content, if we run this in the browser again now, you can see we are actually getting that content there. I'm just going to verify that actually was the problem. I'll just change this back to content again instead of my content, and we'll see if it fails. It doesn't. That wasn't the problem. What have I done? Is it possible I just forgot to save the home.html file? It probably was, unless I'm having some kind of weird brain fade right now. That looks like I forgot to save the file, and that's why it wasn't working. So we went on that fun little adventure to find out how to make it work, but it turns out all you have to do is make sure you save your files. So cool. Let's move on from that now. So we have our content being injected in, so now we will be able to listen for events on that content. So if I just jump into here now, so we've got content is set up as scroll area. So what I want to do now is listen for those Ion scroll events. So I should be able to subscribe to this event, and then we'll be able to handle that however we want. So I'm going to do that inside of this after view init hook here. So what we'll do is this dot scroll area dot ion scroll dot subscribe, and we'll just pass the event in here, and we'll log it out to make sure that we actually get something. Okay, just as an aside here, it looks like it may have been an issue that is called content instead of my content. Because I just ran into issues with it again, so I'm just going to leave it as my content. So you can see that works there, but if I change it back, which I swear I just did, but I'm probably just not thinking straight on video. I'm not sure, something weird is going on. Maybe it's a timing thing, but I ran into issues with not being able to access this again. So yeah, we'll leave it as that for now, actually. If it pops up again, we'll deal with it then. But yeah, not sure what was happening there. If you can spot what was happening and I'm just being weird, let me know. But I'm going to jump back into attempting to do this now. So I set up that scroll event there, and we can get all these scroll events as we scroll, and so that's coming from our expandable header. So we can now listen to those events in our expandable header, which is really cool because now we can actually do something with it. So inside of this event we'll have a few things, but one of those is scroll top. So as you can see, I just scroll down to the bottom there. Now scroll top is 548. And if we scroll up a little bit, The scroll top is 408, and then if I just scroll all the way to the top, then that's going to go back to 0 again. So that's the value that we're going to make use of in order to make our header expand and shrink. So what I want to do is set it to be full height by default, and then as that scroll top increases, we'll just essentially subtract that value from the current height of the header. So I'm going to set up a value in here. We'll call this just header height, I guess makes sense. And we'll probably add the ability to configure that in some way in the future. Depends how long this video goes as to whether we'll set up some extra things in this video or not. By the looks of it so far, we probably won't, because I think it's already dragging. But just for now, I'll just set this to a static value. So we'll set it to, say, we'll go with 150. So we're going to make this 150 pixels in height for the header. And to set up that that height initially, we're going to use the renderer and element ref, which will give us a reference to the native element for this component. And the renderer will allow us to set some styles on it. So I've imported that, and I'll set both of those up now. So we'll set element ref up as element, and we'll set the renderer up as renderer. So what we want to do then is go this.renderer.setElementStyle, and we want to set the style of the native element of this component. So we do this.element.nativeElement, and then we just supply the value that we want to set. So we're going to set the height, and then the value that we want to set that to. So we want to do 150 pixels. So we'll do this.headerHeight plus px. So if we save this now, hopefully our expandable header should be 150 pixels high. And it looks like we are running into some error again. I'm not sure what is causing this. Again, I think it's related to not being able to get that reference. Okay, I changed it to my content, and it seems like it worked again. And if I change that back, it works. I don't know. Yeah, there must be some weird timing issue going on here. So yeah, if you know, let me know in the comments that other people know, so they can, if they want to implement this themselves. But for now, I'm just gonna roll with it. Okay, so our header should be set to 150 pixels now. It doesn't seem to be, so we'll have a look at that. So that's inside the Ion header. We have this height here being set to 150 pixels. So it's set to 150 pixels there, but we also need to set that to display block to get that rendering as a block level element there. So I'll just set up that style in the SCSS file here. So it's not something that we're going to allow the user to configure or anything like that. So we can just set that there. Let me just refresh this to make sure that applied properly. Okay, cool. So we have a 150 pixel tool header here now. Currently it looks a little weird because it's a different color to the nav bar here. There's probably so it's a better way to do this, perhaps something more configurable, but for now we're just going to use the light color, which I believe is the same as the nav. So we can get that from the variables file here. We've got some colors defined, so we're just grabbing the light one. So I'll save that again, and we'll see if that is now gray, and that seems to be. So we're making progress here. We've got the header now set to 150 pixels, and we've got our scroll event set up. We can listen to the scroll and figure out the scroll top. So now what we want to do is make that scroll event affect the height of this header section here, this expandable header section. So what we're going to do is access that scroll top value. So we'll jump back in here, and I'm going to create a separate function here, and we'll call this resize header. I'm going to base that on the event, And we want to handle this event inside of the DOM right handler. I've talked about this a few times in the past. I have an article on it which I'll link to. But essentially it allows us to get Ionic to handle updating the DOM for us with events like scroll events that fire off a lot. We don't want to be making heaps of updates to the DOM. It's going to cause sort of jankiness, and it's not going to perform very well. So we let Ionic handle that for us, and it schedules the update in a more efficient manner. So I have more information on that if you're interested. But basically we want to just run these DOM updates, like changing things styles inside of the DOM right function. So we should be able to access that through the event directly by accessing DOM right, and then whatever code we want to run, we can do so inside of this handler here. And so for now, I just want to log out the event, the scroll top from the event, to make sure everything is working as expected. And it looks like I might be running into that issue again with the content area. Indeed I am. Let's try our old trick of resaving this file with a different name. That is so weird. I feel like I'm missing something so obvious, but I can't for the life of me figure it out right now. So again, just going to roll with it. Okay, so let's scroll this now. I have too much stuff being logged out now actually. Let's jump back in here. We'll get rid of that in here, and we actually want to trigger that resize header event as well, which we weren't doing. And we want to pass through that event from the scroll to that function. So let's try that again. Okay, so I'll scroll that now, and cool, we're getting the scroll top, and that's looking really good. It looks like those are the values that we would want to use. So what I'm going to do now is jump into here, and then we're just going to set the header height. Actually, we'll probably set up another value here. We'll have the initial sort of header height, and then we'll create a new header height as well. And then we'll set the new header height to the original header height minus whatever the current scroll top is. And just as a quick check to make sure that is actually greater than 0, or at least equal or greater than 0, we'll just do if this dot new header height is say less than 0, we'll just set the header height back to 0. Okay, so that's the calculation for that done, and then once we've done that, we also want to then set our height to that value. So I'll just copy and paste this down here as well, and instead of setting it to header height, we'll set it to new header height. Save that, and then hopefully our header area should change its height. Okay, so I'll try scrolling now, cross my fingers, hope nothing crazy happens. And as I scroll, we do have that header expanding and shrinking, which is cool. That's exactly what we want to happen. And now, as you can see, the only sort of weird thing that is going on here is there's this sort of looks like the content is being cut off to the full height of the header area. So that's, if you can see where that sort of is getting cut off at hello there, that's the height of the header plus the nav bar, and that's where it's currently being set as the sort of the point where the content sort of ends. I might just solve this in a cheaty way for now. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah, so you can see our fixed content is taking up 194 pixels, and so Ionic sets that style so that our content isn't going behind our header area, but since we're dynamically changing how large our header area is, I guess Ionic is getting confused and it's cutting it off at that point. So just to solve this for now, what I might do is add the full screen attribute. And what that does is it will allow content to go behind the header area. So if I scroll now, you can see that it follows the header up as it moves. And so now if I scroll, this content is going behind the nav bar. That'll actually be visible behind the nav bar then, rather than stopping just below the nav bar. So that's useful for things like transparent headers, so you can still see the content behind the nav bar. I'd prefer not to solve it in this way eventually in a proper version. But again, this video is running a bit long. I'm not sure how long I've been doing this one so far, but I feel like this is going to be a good place to end the video. I will do a follow-up blog post at least with the additional features of having fields pop up in here based on how high the expandable header area is. The basic idea should just be to have fields defined in the expandable header. I guess we'll need some way for the user to provide them to the header rather than hard coding them in here. But then you just have some kind of check, some kind of ngIf to see what the current height of the header is, and then if it fits, display it. If it wouldn't fit, then don't display it. So if you want to go ahead and try and implement that yourself, it might be a good little challenge to try and figure out. But I will try and get this all sorted for the blog post. Hopefully this video and the blog post will be released around the same time anyway. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this has turned out. Looks really smooth, and it seems to work just as we intended it. And it didn't take too much messing around to build either. We ran into some weird issues with that content, and I'm still not sure what's happening there. I'll try to figure that out for the blog post as well. But yeah, overall, works really well, really happy with it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So keep a lookout for that blog post or this video, whichever comes first, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.